are you? It's another live coding stream. I'm your friend and host, Matt Groves, here to do some more coding stuff today. Just minimize a few things here. So, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, my boss was just watching the last video, the last stream from Tuesday, and he noticed that the monitor, the screen, was off kilter. So apparently, somewhere in messing around with the camera and stuff, I had messed up the actual monitor capture, so it was slightly off center. So I apologize for that last time. I think it's back to center now, so we're in good shape. Also, got the camera still working, so that's also a good sign. So I think we're in tip-top condition for Twitch streaming. Okay, so today we're going to do some pretty hardcore database stuff here. And if you've not really been in the database world, some of these things might be foreign to you, which is totally fine. At least one of them is relatively foreign to me. So first, indexing. We're going to talk about indexing. Indexing, always an important database topic. I need to work on some index advisor content for the upcoming release of Couchbase. So I really need to get in there and, I've already used this a lot. I've used this on the stream before. So we're going to get in there and come up with some good examples. We're going to probably be updating an existing tutorial. So I need to work on that. User-defined functions. So you might have seen user-defined functions before in other databases, or you might be familiar with things like stored procedures, or they're called different things, different databases. I don't know if this is. I don't think we're calling these stored procedures. We're calling these UDFs, or user-defined functions. But I haven't used these much at all when it comes to Couchbase. So we're going to look into that, see what we can't figure out. And the other thing we're going to look at is window functions. So again, you may not have heard this term before, window functions, but it's and again, this is not an area that I have a lot of experience in. I've used these before in other databases, but if you've seen the keywords over or lag and things like that, it's those are window functions. So we're going to look into that a little more, learn about them, and again, I keep saying and again, but I need to get some content out in advance of Couchbase Server 6.5 betas, which will be out soon. I don't have a date for you, but they'll be out soon. And we need to use some window functions in the content somewhere. And I'm not sure where that's going to be yet. I'm thinking maybe user profile tutorial we've got already might be a great place where you might want to use windowing functions in the real world. So that's what we're going to work on today. I've got some content I need to update with these different topics. So we'll see how much we get through in the stream today. I've got 2 hours scheduled, so we've got until about 3:30. Does that sound right? 1:30 to 3:30. Yeah, about 2 hours scheduled of streaming. So we'll get through as much as we can. But right now, let's go through our normal spiel here. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So please, if you have a question about anything that's going on in the coding world or in this stream specifically, or NoSQL, Couchbase, .NET, backend stuff especially, but any topic that you're interested in, please drop a little note there in the chat window. I'd love to hear from you, what you're up to, what kind of questions you have, and don't be afraid to ask. No matter how simple or stupid you think the question is, I disagree. I think it'll be a learning process for everyone, so please feel free to do that. All right, so Team Live Coders. So I am part of a Twitch team here called Team Live Coders. Just want to check out getting distracted by Twitter here. Oh my, little commercial. So Team Live Coders, wow, very active right now. We've got, looks like 6 total streams happening right now on Twitch for Team Live Coders. But this is a Twitch team of a bunch of people who live stream coding and building and technology stuff on Twitch. InstaFluff, we rated him a week or 2 ago. That was a lot of fun. He's a great guy from what I've seen on his stream, and a couple other people we've not rated before. So if they're still streaming in a couple hours, we might do a quick raid on Lies Live? Wow, that's hard to say. Or Code Rush, or whoever's out there But check out this team here. If you're interested in live coding, some people dropped in yesterday who were trying to find some interesting coders to follow. I hoped I'm interesting enough for them to come back, but if not, definitely check out other people streaming. Everyone's doing something different, different time zones. Check out the Michael Jolly. That's always a great channel to drop in on. Really fun. C# Fritz, of course, is kind of the team leader. And Ed Charbonneau does some great stuff with Blazor, especially if you're interested in front-end stuff. Ardalis doing some great clean code, clean architecture type of topics. Lots of great people. I have not checked out all these streams yet. There's so many, but they're all good ones. So no matter what time zone you're in, no matter when you're watching this, chances are go to twitch.tv/team/livecoders. You're going to find someone who is doing some really interesting stuff with technology. Okay, and speaking of which, I'm also on this awesome developer streaming list, and one of the maintainers of this list stopped in yesterday, Surly Dev. He's one of the people working on this list, and he said he's responsible for adding the alphabetization to the list. So thank you very much for that, Surly Dev. But you can go to this site, github.com/bnb/awesome developer streams. Find a list of people who are streaming, not just on Twitch, but all kinds of places. Mixer, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, wherever people are streaming. And these are all developers streaming interesting stuff. So you're going to see some crossover between Live Coders team and here, but you can also just come to this page, do a Control F, look for somebody doing something that's a topic interesting to you. So this was updated 4 hours ago. Let's do our normal data search here. So I like to look for streamers who are doing stuff with databases and backends. So there's yours truly. I do stuff with Couchbase, SQL, SQL++, backend stuff, databases, .NET, C#, and I do some other fun stuff from time to time, soldering and VR and podcasting. We got Rachel Tapman, always on the list, Shirley Wu, Ted Young, Go Maestro Go, Jack Motz, there's myself, Rachel, Shirley again, Ted Young. So it looks like nobody new in the data. Control F. Let's just search for backend. Nothing with backend either. So we're kind of in a small niche right here with the backend and the databases and that kind of stuff. But that's fine. That's fine because backend is a very important part of software, and databases are extremely important parts. So I'm okay with that. All right, so definitely check out this list, bnb/awesome developer streams, do a Control F and in your browser and look for a keyword. So if you're interested in JavaScript, there's going to be a ton of people doing stuff about JavaScript, or interested in PHP, or maybe something like Laravel specifically. You can find someone who's doing some streaming about that, so check that out, please. Okay, what else? GrovesTube, yes, I've been falling behind a bit on this, so all my videos, of course, are on Twitch, and they get saved to Twitch for some period of time, 30 days, something like that. But I also try to get them on YouTube as well for long-term archiving purposes. So you can find those videos there, bit.ly/GrovesTube. You can subscribe, check out old videos, and every time I do a highlight, I'll also publish them to YouTube. So if you have a shorter attention span, want to watch those short highlight clips, you can go there as well as Twitch. All right, what else? TwitchBot. TwitchBot is running. All this bot is doing is just grabbing your messages from the chat room and storing them into a Couchbase bucket where we can query them and look at them, and not sure what else we're going to do with them now. We're just sort of in data collection phase. And actually, I've made a bit of a mess up. So last stream, I was storing those messages into a Couchbase server that was running in Docker. And today, I'm going to try out some of the stuff that's in our 6.5 that's going to be in beta. Right now it's internal build, so you can't download this, but that's what I'm going to be working on today. So that's what the messages are going into today. So after today, I'm going to have one set of messages over here and one set of messages over here, which is not a big deal because I can sync them up later, although they're both on the same machine, so syncing them up maybe an extra step or two. But normally in Couchbase, that's one of the great things about Couchbase is if you have a Couchbase cluster in the East Coast and a Couchbase cluster in the West Coast, you can very easily sync them using this feature here, cross data center replication. So you just say, okay, start copying these messages over to the other cluster and vice versa. Now, the problem I have is that both my clusters are running on the same machine, so there's some port conflicts there, so I have to figure that out. But not a big deal. Worst case, I can do it manually. But anyway, so that's where your messages are going right now. They're going into this Twitch chat bucket. 721 of them in there right now. There's probably more than that after the Tuesday session that just haven't been added there yet. But don't worry, they're not lost. I just need to get them synced up, which is good because Couchbase is good at that. So TwitchBot is running. So anything you drop in the chat room there will show up as a message and get entered. That's all we're doing is saving that data. All right, what else we got? Okay, so this is the notes from last time. So let's update this down here. We're going to cover 3 things. Well, hopefully 3 things. We'll see what we can get to. Yo, 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 it's Calvin Allen. What's up, man? Thanks for stopping in. Your message got logged correctly, so our TwitchBot is awake and receiving your messages. So that should be 722, and there it is. All right. Thumbs up. Colon, colon, thumbs up, colon, colon. Okay. All right, so indexing. So here, let me just bring up some content here. So if you go to docs.couchbase.com and you see there's different boxes here for what type of technologist you are. So if you're an administrator, you want to look at this one. If you're a developer like me, you probably look at this one here. If you're a SQL developer, also, I would consider myself this middle category here. And mobile developers have stuff over here. But we're going to look at the developers tutorials section. This is brand new, by the way. The Docs team has done some really great work on this to integrate these integrations with the Doc site. And so you can do things like do a little search, a text search based on keywords. It'll show you, oh yeah, here's, if you're looking for something with 360 in it, here's the customer 360. Or if you're looking for something like a workshop, there we go. Or if you're looking for something with C#, it'll search all these fields, narrow it down to what you're looking for. So we're looking at indexing. Now, what was I thinking of for indexing? Let me just look at my notes here off screen. Yeah, so there's a user profile tutorial right here. And I worked on the .NET version. And Dennis Rosa, another person on my team who's more of a Java expert than me, he did the Java version. But let's just open up the .NET tutorial here. So this is all about getting started building a user profile store on top of Couchbase. So there's lots of parts to that. All right. So what I want to focus on for indexing, however, is querying the database part. So yeah, so here's our profile. We got all this stuff in there. So this is an example of how it would look in JSON format. All right. And then so we've got a query here that's going to list the users for a given tenant. So that this is using just a string, just running the SQL directly. This one is using link to do a different type of query to find active users by first name. Which, by the way, do I have a link to Couchbase? Yes. So link to Couchbase. One of the things that's come up recently in these tutorials is that some of these tutorials I'm using like open source projects for that are not necessarily supported by like full Couchbase enterprise support. So I need to draw attention to that. Link to Couchbase is one of those projects that's not yet an officially supported project by Couchbase support. However, we have plenty of customers using it. Yeah, so you see right here, not supported under the Couchbase Enterprise Support subscriptions. So if you are an enterprise customer and you have purchased enterprise support, unfortunately right now, Link to Couchbase is not one of those things that the support team can help you with. Is this the stuff that Brant did? You're talking about Link to Couchbase? Yes, absolutely. This is something that Brant Burnett is one of the main contributors on. So Brant Burnett is one of them. He is not a Couchbase employee, although he probably knows more about Couchbase than I've forgotten. And then Jeff Morris is a Couchbase employee. He is another major contributor for this, as well as Mike Goldsmith, also a Couchbase employee. And the rest of these people, they are all, I don't think they're Couchbase employees, but they're all contributing to the library as well. So I might need to, while we're at it, I might need to put a note in here like, hey, look, the Link to Couchbase is not, it's a very cool project. Lots of people are using it and contributing to it, but it's not a officially enterprise supported library, at least not yet. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. What I want to get to is this part right here, is when you write queries like this, you need an index for them. So for this case here, what I'm saying is that we're setting the bucket alert. We created a single index that was a primary index. So a primary index basically allows you to write any query you want to on a bucket, which is fine for development or small sets of data. I would say even maybe small sets of data is pushing it, but it's fine for development because you're just interested in getting a query that works. But as you go into production, this primary index is a bad idea. If you have a large amount of data, a production amount of data, that index is very slow. It's basically scanning every single document in the bucket, no matter what. So it's like a table scan, except think of a table scan for your entire database. You don't want that in production. So creating the right indexes is critical, as well as I say right here in the tutorial. So what I've done now is I said, okay, let's create a couple of indexes to make the above two methods more performant. So this one up here, this method, and this one right here. And so what I do at that point is I just say, okay, here's an index to create. And I give you the index to create. And it's going to create an index, and this is relatively simple, but it's going to look up the tenant ID. It's going to index the tenant ID field, but only on user documents, which is perfect for that. And then the next one is for find active users by first name is a little trickier. But you can turn on logging with the .NET SDK and see the NICL that's generated. And at that point, you can try to build an index with it. And so, again, I just sort of jump to it and say, here's an index that's going to improve performance for that query. And I give out the index. There it is right there. However, creating indexes is tricky business. I just sort of give you the indexes here. But a little peek behind the curtain, I didn't actually just invent these indexes out of my brain. I didn't just pull them out of thin air because I'm such an expert with data. No, not at all. I had some help to make these indexes. And what I did was I used the Couchbase Index Advisor. Now the Couchbase Index Advisor is not something you can get yet. It's going to be in the 6.5 beta. This query was written with 6.0 in mind, so I kind of cheated a little bit here, and I created some indexes. I used the Index Advisor to create these indexes in 6.5, even though that Index Advisor is not available. So what I want to do now is I want to add in a little bit of a tutorial about the Index Advisor and how I went about using it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this tutorial as is, but maybe create a separate file, a separate sort of mini tutorial that's going to be linked to from this tutorial, and probably from the Java tutorial as well, just to get some reuse out of it, to kind of show you how you can go about building an index using Index Advisor. So I'll put a little footnote in here somewhere that says, oh, by the way, if you're having trouble coming up with an index, one of the tools you can use is Index Advisor. Here's a link to learn more about how to use that. And eventually, there'll be in the documentation, I don't think we have any 6.5 documentation that's totally public yet. There may be some in staging. But eventually, there'll be a link to that as well, to the full Index Advisor documentation. So that's what I want to work on. So what I think I want to do now is I'm going to maybe make an example out of this query here. Although it's a bit like some of this stuff is a bit of a red herring, like the limits and the offsets. It doesn't really figure into the indexing, I don't think. So really it's just this part. So, and the other thing I need to think about is the actual data. So I may want to, I don't know, maybe get your opinion on this. There's at least 3 of you out there, maybe more. I'm not sure about Streamlabs, how it measures viewers or not. It seems to be off from the actual Twitch viewers. But anyway, get your opinion out there. If you know, you're going through this tutorial on user profile and you're like, okay, good. Yeah, there's at least one out there. At least Calvin's out there watching. You're going through this tutorial and you get to this point and you're like, okay, yes, this query makes sense. Good. And then it's like, oh, okay, well now I need to figure out how to write indexes. And this looks complicated. So how do I write an index? And there's a link here to another page to show you how to use Index Advisor. At that point, oh, the Michael Jolly is definitely not here. He's getting his lurk on while I get my work on. Like that. You can chime in with an opinion though, Michael Jolly. Absolutely. So if you are going through this tutorial and you're directed to another sort of sub-tutorial, sort of a mini tutorial on Index Advisor, would you rather, two options here, we'll put them out there, two options. First option is the tutorial itself takes you through some examples using a built-in sample set of data that's built into Couchbase, like travel sample, which is always my go-to. So it's when you install Couchbase, you can have the travel sample give you that data right out of the box. You just go to settings and then sample buckets. Calvin gifting a sub to Michael Jolly. So Calvin's just like throwing those subs out there like crazy. Thank you very much, Calvin, for gifting a sub to the great Michael Jolly. Appreciate that. He is good folk. Absolutely, Calvin. You are right on about that. So anyway, there's other samples out there, but I like travel sample data. I just like it. So would you rather an example be built on travel sample data, which is different than the data in this tutorial, by the way. This tutorial is all about user profile data. Or would you rather the mini tutorial take you through importing some data, like a sample set of data that I would create for you. So you have to first import that data, and then you can write some queries, and then take you through the query advisor. So a little bit of an extra step there to get some sample data. But sample data might be useful for this main tutorial in the first place. But which would you rather do? Import sample data from the tutorial, or just fire up the sample data set that's built into Couchbase? So just do like a pros con here. So we got the built-in versus import sample set. So the built-in pro is that it's easier. And the import sample data set, the pro is that it more closely matches the parent tutorial data. And the pro for me is easy, so it's easier for the learner, and it's also easier for the tutorial writer. And the con here is that it's more work for tutorial writer. So I think what it's boiling down to here is that this is just more work for me. So Calvin says he'd prefer to start with a built-in. Okay. And after that maybe have a more advanced. So what you're saying, Calvin, is why not have both? Start with the travel sample example, and then have a sample set that they could choose to work with after that. So there'll be a third category here, both. And the pro is best of both worlds. The con is way more work for tutorial writer. We can zoom in on this here, maybe. Oh, I don't have zoom it running. There we go. So those are the three scenarios. So if Calvin says, if I'm going through this as a brand new person to Couchbase, as few steps as possible to get up and moving. Makes sense to me. Michael Jolly says, it depends on the tutorial. If there's a to-do list app, then no data. If it's something more data intensive, then definitely sample data. So either case, Michael, we're going to need sample data. It's just a matter of, is this going to be the built-in sample data for Couchbase, or is it going to be a custom set of sample data that I have to build? And the only reason I would want to build a custom set of sample data is because we're sort of branching off this existing user profile store tutorial. And there is no built-in user profile data set in Couchbase. It's just travel data and beer data and game sim. And I've never even used the game sim data. If it's just a simple to-do list example, the reader can enter hello world into a task. Yes, I suppose they could, but we're looking at more complex data than that because we're talking about indexing. And if it's just a single text message, then that's not going to be sufficient for a tutorial, for a index tutorial. So, I mean, up here you can see some of the other steps of the query. So another option, we can just provide no sample data. This is super easy for a tutorial writer. Kind of a con is that user needs to create their own data. But the counterpoint to that, if they're following along with the user profile tutorial, then they probably already have some data. Michael Jolly, sorry, my lurk is showing. I didn't realize the tutorial is focused on indexing. Then 100% sample data, please. Yes, so I believe sample data for sure. The question is, which sample data do we use? So the provide no sample data would be sort of the opposite of the provide both. Yes. So anyone who's watching this and is thinking, writing tutorials is super easy, writing docs is super easy. Why don't they just make their docs better? Well, this is sort of the conundrum. It's like, how do we make our docs better? Which of these scenarios is going to be better for the developer following along? Or to generalize it more, most of the developers following along, which is going to help most of the developers as much as possible. Because there's going to be different levels of people who are just starting out, like Calvin mentioned, or people who are already elbow deep in a user profile, and they're just trying to figure out, okay, how do I write a better index, that sort of thing. So that's really the question here. How do we best approach this? Sometimes you just gotta, as a developer or as a writer, sometimes you just have to sort of think, which is not the most streaming, not the most exciting content for streaming, is watching someone think. You see smoke coming out of my ears. Don't be alarmed. Oh, hey, we got someone else. Riley Sheed, hopefully I'm saying that right. Hi, personally, I like when tutorials maintain the same data all the way through, less mental context switching for the learner. I'm just lurking, though. Don't listen to me. Riley, that is totally fair, and I'm sort of leaning that direction. I'm sort of leaning towards the import sample set here. So, which is to say, this import sample set, so here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so we've got this user profile tutorial. That's the main thing. It branches off into indexing, index advisor tutorial. So then the index advisor tutorial, step 1, or let's just call it step 0, could be load some sample data. And as part of this, I could say you may already have sample data from the user profile tutorial with a link back to the main tutorial. So what that deals with is that if someone just comes in off Google somewhere and hey, man, Michael Jolly and Calvin Allen, you're doing the Lord's work. You're being very welcoming to Riley, so I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Calvin is one of my mods, by the way. He's my ride or die. He's always hanging out with me. Thank you, Calvin. And the Michael Jolly is on the Team Live Coders. These are two great guys, so you should definitely give them a follow on the Twitch to watch them in their own streams. The Michael Jolly stream, very entertaining and educational. So And Calvin, again, dropping in the sub to Riley. Thank you very much, Calvin. You guys are awesome. So what I'm thinking here with step 0, if you already have the sample data, if you're not concerned about that, then you can skip step 0. Makes step 0 skippable. But if you don't have the sample data, if you're just coming in fresh, then step 0 is going to help you get started. And then step 1 would be, okay, we're going to create a primary index and run a query. Step 2, we're going to run advisor to see if we can improve the index. And step 3 will be create index. And then maybe step 4 will be back to the user profile tutorial. So that's my thoughts. That's what I'm thinking. How does that seem to all you watching this? So just keep in mind, this is a sort of a sub-tutorial. We have this main user profile tutorial that already exists, and it's going to link to this new mini tutorial. And so that's the 4 steps I'm thinking. That's my outline I'm thinking of for this tutorial. Calvin, be right back, work call. Man, you're leaving me hanging. Need that opinion. I'll see you in a little bit, Calvin. Good luck with the work call. So step 0, which you can ignore if you want to, load some sample data, and I'll provide the sample data. Probably be a small set of data. Step 1, that's step 0. Step 1 is, okay, we're going to create a primary index and just run a query just to get that working. Step 2 is we're going to say I'm going to also mention that primary index is not recommended for production. Always good to reiterate that. That's honestly, I've talked to some of the professional services people at Couchbase, and primary indexes in production, you know, it's one of the main issues, one of the primary issues, if you will, that they run into in production is that they have a primary index in production, and that can be very problematic. And you know, as much as I like to believe that we always communicate this as much as possible, apparently in production that is not the case. So either people are not coming across this message, or they're ignoring it, or they're forgetting about it. But we need to make sure that whenever in a tutorial says primary index, we need to make sure that it's communicated clearly that this is fine for development. Do not do it in production. Okay, and then run advisor. That's pretty easy to do. It's a couple screenshots. It's like a button to click. See if we can improve the index. And we will be able to, because I will design the query in such a way that an index will help it. And then the next step is create the index. That's pretty much just a copy and paste from index advisor. And then, probably show, compare the query plan before and after. We'll just do the after here, and then we'll show the query plan. This is the before. Okay, and then since this is basically part of a larger tutorial, we'll just have a link back to it. So even if they came directly from Google to this mini tutorial, we can still take them back up to the user profile tutorial to finish that off. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that approach. So I'm going to do that basically. So I may not do all of it here. I'll just sort of copy this outline into tutorials document and then finish it up later. But we're talking profile store and pages. So I'm going to create a new document here, and we'll call this index advisor a doc. Yes. Okay. I'm just going to use this Notepad++. Back. That was a quick work call, Calvin. What do you like? Sorry, I'm not streaming. Gotta go. That's a pretty efficient work call. Unless it was canceled, I guess. But I will Sarah. Yeah, okay. Hey, so I love Sarah. I wish I got a chance to meet her in person one of these days. But one of the things that I absolutely loved, and I bring this up all the time, one of the things I loved about working at Heuristics, which is where Calvin works right now, I used to work there, was it seemed like, and maybe this is just nostalgia, but it seemed like meetings, the way that organization handles meetings is super efficient, because everyone is just like, let's make this meeting as short as possible. Let's schedule a shorter period of time as we can, and once we accomplish what this meeting is, we have a defined agenda. Once this agenda is accomplished, okay, bail out. Everybody's out of this meeting. Whereas other places I've been to, other companies I work for, it's like, well, our meeting's scheduled for an hour, so we got to use every single minute of that hour. Let's send out a meeting request to 10 people and no agenda, that sort of thing. Right. So I feel like, and I don't know if you can comment on this or not, Calvin, but I feel like one of the things that heuristics does very well is meetings. So yeah, that's one of the things that if I had to pick a list of things that I miss about heuristics, that's one of them. Anyway, okay, so that's where I'm going with that index advisor tutorial. So this is going to be part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. So Calvin, yeah, it's definitely gotten worse since you left. Oh man, that's not good. But it's still a priority. Well, that's unfortunate that it's gotten worse. Although I feel like, I know you guys are growing a lot, adding people. And so when you add more people, it gets, meetings get more complicated, right? There's that, what's that, project management, communication, it's like an equation, formula. I can't type formula. Number of communication channels. Have you heard this one before? Yes. It's so the T is the number of members in your project team. The number of lines of communication is T squared minus T divided by 2. Right. So if you have 4 members of your team, so that's 4 times 4 squared, so 4 times 4 is 16. Minus 4 is 12 divided by 2. So there's 6 lines of communication total between all those 4 members of this team. I think that's right. Now, if you're like heuristics, and now we've gone 5 members of the team. So it's 5 times 5 is 25, minus 5 is 20, divided by 2. So we went, by adding 1 person to the team, we went from 6 channels to 10. So as you add more people to a team, the lines of communication get larger and larger and more complex. So that may be part of it, Calvin, just growing pains of a team. But when I was there, it was definitely a priority, and it's still a priority there. That's one of the things about the heuristics culture that I found very, very good. Just for the record, I'm not going to talk about the things that I didn't like, because there's enough negativity on the internet. But that's one of the things I did like. Okay. So this is a branches off of main user profile tutorials. So we'll link to this from both the Java and the .NET. So we don't have to double our work. We can just do the same amount of work. But this will be index advisor tutorial. User profile index advisor tutorial. Okay. All right. We're at 212. Okay, so we got, I got started a little bit on indexing. I just got to do all the writing and screenshotting and coding for that. But I got a good outline in place, so that always helps. All right, the next thing I want to look into is user-defined functions. Now this is going to be a little different. I don't know if I'm going to get to an outline in this stream or not, because I've not actually used user-defined functions much in Couchbase. I think I've done it one time, and it was earlier today, before the stream. And so I'm just trying to kind of figure out how that works. So I asked around internally, because I know people are working on documentation for it furiously. It looks like user-defined functions, much like Index Advisor, this may also be something that's in the beta that's a developer preview feature. So it's not something that's going to be supported right off the bat. It's just going to be, we're going to put it out there, see what people think, get some feedback from it, and then take that feedback into account before we actually make it a production feature. So this is like this is going to be behind a feature flag, much like I think the Index Advisor will be behind a feature flag. So if you look over here, Enterprise Edition, this is an internal build. This is an older build, but internal build. At the top, you can see unsupported. So I've got it in a mode where it's not supported right now, and that's how this advice button shows up. Advise button shows up here. So it's something you have to opt into to try it out. So if you have a problem with the advise button, it's not going to be something that the support team can help you with, because it's just totally a preview feature out there for feedback and early feedback. So the same thing, it looks like, is going to be the case with the user-defined functions. So as you can see here, I did this a little bit earlier. Notice that I'm selecting from foo here, which is a function I created earlier. A pretty meaningless function, but I'm getting some more information here, that there's actually a catalog of those functions. And so if I do select star from system functions, that system : functions, that's like a system catalog, and that lists all the functions that are in the system right now. And so right now you can see my expression earlier I created was from Twitch chat, and it was just hard-coded to give me anything that Coral R was the author of. So if we go over to the Twitch chat bucket here, you can see that in these documents, one of the fields is called display name. So I hard-coded. Can I zoom in on this a little bit? No, that's just search. I was hoping to zoom in on this text, get a little bigger. I guess that'll work. Guess we'll stick with zoom it. But over here you can see this is the query that I wrote to be the body of this function. The function has the name foo. And then there's things like, I don't know what these really mean yet. Language inline was part of the syntax, I think, to create that function. So I'm trying to suss these things out, because I need to write some content for it. So let me just back up here a little bit. Yeah, so this is how I created my function. So create function, gave it a name, parentheses. I'm not sure about parameters yet. I got to figure that out. And I'm not sure what the syntax means. Language inline. Not quite sure what that means yet. And then as, and then this is the body of the function, which I just a really simple select statement, and then close out the function there. So I am just sort of poking around to try to find some information about this, so I can tinker around with it, of course, but I kind of want to don't want to have to figure this stuff out myself. I'm assuming that there's some function or some documentation or a spec somewhere that I could look at. I want to see about deleting. Is that going to work? Syntax error at function. So that doesn't seem to be working. Maybe is it drop function? Aha! Drop function seems to work. So if I go back to here, it's going to be an empty results. Okay, so I can drop the function. So let me just start taking some notes here. Once again, taking notes. All right, so creating a function is like this. Oh, that's awful. Okay, as something. Okay, so here's my questions. So far is, what does language mean? What does inline mean? Can I specify parameters? Then it's a drop function foo. Delete the function. And one of the questions I had earlier was about just getting a list of all the functions. So this is how you do it right here. So this will be create a function. This will be drop the function. Drop, I'll call it /drop, delete, remove, whatever, the function. And this will be give me a list of functions. Okay, the next question, I guess, would be, can I do multiple statements? Can I do insert, update, delete? So multiple statements. I'm not quite sure what that would look like, because these are functions. They're not stored procedures. So I don't know if there's any concept of a variable, variables. Can I select into something and then perform another query on that? So that's a question I would need to know more about. But so far, and we're all in different time zones here, the documentation team and the query team and whatnot. So I do not want to say I'm blaming them or anything, but I put out some messages earlier today because I thought I'd be streaming on this today, trying to get some idea of where I could look for documentation. I've got a few responses back, but so far nothing about like any sort of spec on how this works or any of the details about it. So what can we do? Oh, looks like the Michael Jolly is live, by the way, streaming right now. If you want to head on over there, he's doing some interesting stuff. So I'm just sort of doing some stuff off screen here. But I do know that our documentation is open source. So if we go to GitHub / I'll start with Couchbase. And I think we have a repo for this, docs server. And it's been updated very recently. So I'm just kind of curious, if we look in here, are we going to see anything about creating functions? So functions. There's just this is just an array of functions. I want a user-defined functions. Can you do a search of a GitHub repo? I could find a file, but let's just see UDF, anything like that. Add functions, on delete functions. Yeah. User defined. User default. Okay. All right. So nothing's really jumping out at me there. Doesn't mean it's not in there. Partial language reference. Okay, I don't know what that is. So these are all months ago as well. So it might be on a branch. You know, that would make sense. Mad Hatter branch. Let me just make sure that this is public before I go too crazy showing this stuff off. Okay, so that is public. All right. So Mad Hatter is actually the code word for the next release of Couchbase 6.5, I think. I'm not a project manager. Please don't take this as confirmation of anything. Could be 7.0, could be 6.4 for all I know. But it's the next significant release of Couchbase. Okay, so this is bitwise function. So yeah, this has been updated days ago. Window functions, yeah, some good stuff in there. Definitely check that out. Some diagrams, that looks good. What about anything with UDFs? Not seeing anything. I believe there's a staging site for this too. So I'm wondering if we could just go to a staging site and navigate it. Like ones that are already closed. Like this one, fixed a broken link. And usually there's like a link. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Language reference probably would be in here, right? Just index stuff. Yeah, I don't know. This just says functions, but yeah. I don't see user defined in here anywhere, or UDF. Pattern matching, miscellaneous utility. So yeah. Let's see. Let's create primary index. Create index. Okay, well, I guess I have some questions, if nothing else. What does language mean in there? What does inline mean? How do I specify parameters? Can I do multiple statements or variables? Can I do insert, update, delete? So now my job isn't necessarily to document this, to show how it works, to write a blog post, to intro user-defined functions. But my job is to try to help show developers ways that they can use this in a tutorial or in a specific use case, or just give them a guide that goes beyond here's how you do a user-defined function. But why would I want to do a user-defined function? What's the benefit? How would I create a user-defined function to work with this use case? That sort of thing. So, with that in mind, my initial thoughts on user-defined functions was to make some notes here. The Customer 360 ingestion tutorial. So that is also a tutorial that already exists. Go back to tutorial. And this is the one I did a lot of work on the stream for this one. I did one for retail. So I was thinking, how could I make user-defined functions part of this? And so my initial thoughts on that were basically because I was doing this eventing function here, but I don't think that does any sort of nickel. So it wouldn't make sense. I don't know if I'm using any nickel at all in this tutorial. It's just all key-based operations. So I don't know if that makes sense to make that part of this data ingestion. If I'm not doing any nickel, why would I bother with it? Now, the next step of this retail use case would be once I've ingested data, and how do I actually get information out of it? At that point, a user-defined function might come in handy. But I don't think that's going to work for this one. So let me just go in here in my notes and just cross this out. So I'm trying to figure out where can I put UDFs to leverage or augment, some fancy words, existing content. I'm going to make a note that the data ingestion currently isn't using any nickel, so it wouldn't make sense to put it there. Data ingestion in Customer 360 retail. So it doesn't make any sense to put it there. UDFs, I mean, they can be very interesting. I'm sure people have really strong opinions on putting sprocs and user-defined functions into their databases. Some people have extreme opinions like you should never do that. Some people have extreme opinions that you shouldn't do anything. You should not access data except through sprocs or user-defined functions. I think the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. I lean towards the people who don't want to put any logic in the databases. But there are certainly situations where you want to have that user-defined function closer to the data. You don't necessarily want that code in your application layer. So with that in mind, though, one place where I think might be useful, this is not official content, is at least not yet, is my little dog food project. I think I've shown you this before. It's my my family photo sorting program, and I was just in here the other day. Or no, I'm wrong. I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I was showing you this earlier this week. Is the scavenger hunt application. There was a place where I thought a user-defined function would make sense, and in fact, this kind of bit me a little bit at KCDC. And a user-defined function would have helped in this situation, I think. So let's go to, where was it? Zone repository? Yes, right here. This little function right here, or this little nickel query right here. This is a complicated bit of nonsense here. What this is show the leaderboards at a scavenger hunt. So an individual scavenger hunt the prize winners are the people at the top of the leaderboard. So we want to show a leaderboard not only for people who are playing the game to see themselves on the leaderboard, but also at the booth. We want to show the leaderboard. We want to say, here are the people at this event right now who are competing with you, and here's where they are in the competition in terms of points. So this query is that. It's to get the top 10 people in the zone, the top 10 points leaders. And so for display purposes, I'm combining their first and last name into name, because here's an actual leader object. It's just name and points. That's all it is, name and points. So this first part here is just getting the name. And then before KCDC, I was just getting the points, summing up the points. And so it's doing this, scavenger hunt is joining the user together to get their individual actions. So a couple joins, an unnest here. I want to look just at completed actions, and I want to make sure that they were true, that they were actually completed them successfully, because you can try as many times as you want to, and it stores all those tries. But I want to find the ones that they were successful at, because the points that you collect, that's not stored on its own. I'm sort of compiling all these together from the questions you've answered successfully, and then I'm joining them with the actions to see how many points they're worth, and then I'm doing this little equation here to say, okay, well, divided by the number of attempts. So the more attempts you have, the worse your score is, that sort of thing. And one thing I failed to take into account is people who could go into our system and they could create multiple accounts. So I could create account 1 with my personal email address and account 2 with my professional email address. And I knew that might be possible going in, that people might want to game the system, or if they mess up the first time around, they might want to try another account so they can try to win the prize. And I don't really know how to prevent that. I don't know if there's a good way to stop that from happening. What I didn't think about, and I didn't test this going in, was that I would use the same name. I would use Matt Groves on the first account and Matt Groves on the second account. And so what I ended up with is I'm querying this. So the results of this would be Matt space Groves, and I'm grouping by the same thing, Matt space Groves. So maybe if you're familiar with SQL, you can kind of see what the problem is here. If I have two different accounts that are Matt space Groves, this query is going to combine them and roll them up as if they were one person, which means it's going to look like on the leaderboard that I have double the points that are even possible for me to have. So this bit me. During the conference, we saw someone jump to the top of the leaderboard, and they had way more points than anyone else even came close to. And I was immediately suspicious. So I'm kind of glad this person did this. I don't know if he intended to do this or not, but he certainly uncovered an issue. So what I needed to do then was bring in the user ID, which is unique to every single account, and group by that user ID as well. I don't actually show the user ID to the UI. That's not in this leader object, but I'm grouping by it. Actually, probably don't even need this in here. Just down here in the group by. So that way, it'll split up their point totals by their user ID as well. So they can't game it anymore. However, when I discovered this issue in production, what I needed to do was I needed to go to the source code, my .NET program here, get this, copy this code out into Workbench. Do I have it scavenged around over here? I don't think I do. It's probably in my Docker image from Tuesday. Yeah, I don't. I needed to copy this query out of the C# source code. I needed to paste it over in Workbench. I needed to work on it to make sure I could change the query to fix the bug by just adding this field here and this field here. And then I needed to paste the new query in here, which, by the way, involves this little parameter as well. So I need to paste this query into here, and then I needed to deploy this entire .NET application, redeploy it to Azure, just to fix that one query. If, instead of this, my query was select, I don't know, star maybe, from leaderboard, and then pass in the zone ID. If it was just that instead, I wouldn't have to touch this C# program. I wouldn't have to redeploy the entire .NET program. I would have to go and modify the leaderboard user-defined function. But I could do that directly in Couchbase. Now, again, probably not good to just tinker around in production with that. But when I still have to go into Couchbase, but I could do it all in Couchbase. I could get the query out, examine it, see where I went wrong, and then fix that query. Which reminds me, is there? That's another question we can bring up. Is there a way to, I don't necessarily want to drop that function completely and recreate it. Is there an alter? Is there an alter for UDFs? So that way there's no, there still may be a brief microsecond or something, but there's no downtime. Someone who's working in the system is not going to get an error message here that says, hey, this function doesn't exist. So is there a way to alter it? Ask about that. Okay, so that would be a great place right there. I have this complicated query. The fact that it's complicated is not a big deal, but the fact that if I want to change it and I have to redeploy the whole system to do that, whereas I could just change it in the Couchbase server itself. Additionally, hypothetically, if I had multiple systems and they all wanted to get the leaderboard information, if there's, for instance, a mobile component to this, then I'd have to the mobile component would have to call this endpoint here. This is not an endpoint, by the way, and I have to expose an endpoint for it. Or it could go directly to my database and run the user-defined function leaders on there. Or if I was doing some sort of analysis directly in the system, I might want that leaderboard function. So in some situations, especially when it's a very complex query like this, it's going to get more and more complex, it would make sense to have that exist one place close to the database. Versus, I don't want to send all my CRUD operations through a function. I don't want to have to create a CRUD for every single simple query. Like right up here, this, I don't know if this is really worthwhile to put into it's very simple. I don't know if it's worthwhile to put into a function. Or right here where I'm just selecting all the zones. That's a query that's probably not going to change very much. And if it does, it's going to be a major change in the system. So a redeploy would make sense. Whereas down here, calculating my leaderboard, that's something that this only affects a small part of the system. So maybe I want to put that close to the server. So all that being said, I don't have this scavenger hunt program. It's not. There's no tutorial for it. This is clearly just something. This is just something that I'm using only for the Couchbase booth. So I need to come up with a scenario where a user-defined function would be beneficial. And so I want to show before and after with a UDF. So this might be a .NET program that is using Nickel directly versus .NET program that's calling a UDF. So where is a tutorial that does that? Do I have one? It might be that same user profile. Is that where it was? Profile.net. We saw some Nickel here, and I was going to use that for indexing, right? Querying database. Yeah, this isn't terribly complicated. I don't know if it really justifies it. And then down here we're using link, so I'd have to stop using link if I wanted to make that an example. So what else do we have? There's session. Using Couchbase Server as a session store. I think I'd do some exploring of session data. Okay. So yeah, with the session store, this might work. This was an annoying thing, is that when ASP.NET stores session data, it stores it base64 encoded. So every time I have to query it, I have to run it through base64 decoding, which is not a huge deal. but it's kind of a pain in the neck to have to remember to do that. So what if, instead of that, I just created a function? Exploring session data requires base 64 decoding. Why not write a function, UDF, that does the base 64 decoding? So instead of base 64 decode s.shopping cart every time, I can just query shopping cart UDF. So I think that actually might be a really good use of it. Yeah, it might be really good use to just sort of wrap shopping cart in base 64, because if I'm querying with nickel my shopping cart and it's always in base 64, I'm always going to want to decode that, always. And it's a huge pain in the neck to have to do that every single query. So having a UDF here makes total sense. The only downside to this is that it's not a terribly complex UDF. I mean, it's very simple UDF. So that no parameters are being used. Doesn't show off parameters, for instance, if we even have them. if we even have parameters. That's an unanswered question I have right now. Right up here. Can I specify parameters? No multiple statements. I still might be able to show off the alter and delete. There's no insert, update, delete, that sort of thing. So it doesn't really show off a lot of this stuff, but it might be okay. It might be just fine. So that's going to be something I need to just make a note of this over in my my Kanban board here. Which I'm showing off screen because I don't want you to see all the Kanban stuff going on here for our team. Not all of it's mine, so you don't need to see all that. But yeah, that might work. That might work. Okay, cool. This is good, because this, live coding is not just about coding. There's this thread going around Twitter, and it's kind of funny. Let me see if I can find it. Old Jimmy Bogard. And he apparently he had to do some pair programming recently. Pair programming. Let's see. And he's wrestled some Jimmys, so to speak. Okay, let's just go with this one. It's a good place to start. So, well, actually, yes. Here's the original one. Every time I pair program, reminds me how much I hate pair programming, and so this stirred up a lot of conversation over here. So pair debugging, fine. Pair troubleshooting, great. Pair designing, fantastic. Pair modeling, hooray. Pair programming, kill me. So yeah, this got some people up in arms about the statements. Jimmy Bogart, he is, whether he wants to admit it or not, he is definitely a thought leader when it comes to the .NET space. Creator of AutoMapper, works at Headspring. He was at KCDC actually. Thought leader, yeah, yeah. Well, there are those who call themselves thought leaders, and there are those who are actual thought leaders, like influencers. And Jimmy Bogart is one of those people. Not everyone agrees with him, which is totally fine. He's a great guy. I've met him before. He's a really smart guy. But yeah, he's against pair programming. Now Calvin and I, we've done a lot of pair programming in the past. I don't know how Calvin feels about it. I can't speak for him. I've always found it tremendously valuable for a number of different things. Influencers. Yeah. So again, this is not a guy. I don't want to put this on Jimmy. He's not calling himself an influencer. He's not calling himself a thought leader. None of those things. He's just a guy doing great work for his customers. But I look at him as, yes, he's a guy that I look to. I value his opinion. He's a well-known public figure. And by the way, hey Coral, thanks for stopping in. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in on the chat. Anyway, so this got a lot of discussion going about what pair programming is, what it consists of. Is pair programming separate from debugging, designing, modeling, those sort of things, planning? Now, I love pair programming, and I've done a lot of it with Calvin in the past and with other companies I worked with. So like Jamie Davis, we did a lot of pair programming back in the day at Intelligent. Calvin doesn't disagree with him. Interesting. So apparently I've put Calvin right off pair programming. But Calvin and I did a lot of pair programming back in the day, and the programming itself is one thing, but I think all the stuff around pair programming is about knowledge transfer and about experience. It has a lot to do with where you work and who you work with. Yeah. So I mean, pair programming, it's just another one of those buzzwords, I guess, that doesn't convey much information by itself. So I guess you got to think, why am I pair programming? Why am I doing this pair programming exercise? And there's lots of reasons why you might want to do that. One of them is just knowledge transfer, of getting someone else up to speed with what's going on. So it's like, okay, come pair program with me for a couple hours. You can get a feel for the code base, and you'll learn more about what to do. Another reason to do pair programming is mentoring. And I think that might have been what Jimmy was doing here, is helping someone to code, to learn about what's going on, where the mentor is not going to learn a tremendous amount about the code base, is not going to necessarily be super productive. However, the person they're mentoring is going to learn a ton, I think, because they're going to be able to ask questions of, hey, what's this line of code do? What's this keyword do? Why are we calling this function here? And the person being mentored is going to learn a ton from that. I think there is still an opportunity for the mentor to learn, though, because a person being mentored is going to ask questions. It's going to challenge assumptions that maybe you've taken for granted for years. And they're going to bring things up like, why are we calling this function here? And you're going to say, wait, why are we calling this function here? So that there's still an opportunity for that. But for the most part, that might be a painful exercise for the mentor, because the person learning doesn't know all the shortcuts, doesn't know all the keyboard chords and everything. Today's comment, you and I were designing, programming, debugging all in one. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we were doing a lot of coding, but a lot of it was thinking about, okay, do we need to put a new class in here? Do we need to refactor this? How's the best way to unit test this? Stuff like that. So that's all design work. That's all modeling work. And we're doing a lot of programming as well. But what was my point? My point was, what we're doing here on the stream today is not just raw coding. We're not doing just pure live coding. What I'm showing you here, and a lot of my job is around creating content. So maybe your job is not around creating content. But I mean, all of us do create content. Hopefully you're creating documentation, you're creating unit tests, you're creating, you're helping to write stories and features and issues and bugs and tickets. And that's all content. It may be content that only one person or two people ever read, unlike hopefully this public content, which, by the way, since I'm writing it, it may only be read by one person ever, but that's not the point. The point is everyone's writing content. So, take a step back and plan out the content and think about, well, what am I missing? What pieces do I need? Let's put together an outline. Let's put this into our tracking system so we can get a discussion going about it. And so, coding is not just about coding, just like pair programming is not just about programming. And so apparently there's some version of pair programming that Jimmy Bogard was participating in that he absolutely did not like. He did not enjoy it. However, he did do it. He did the pair programming, which tells me that someone out there got to the valuable experience of being able to code with one of the top, in my opinion, one of the top .NET developers out there, Jimmy Bogard. I don't know if they're doing .NET, but whatever they're doing, he got to this person programming with him got to work with Jimmy Bogard. So apparently, it wasn't a great experience for Jimmy, but it was probably an amazing experience for whoever he was working with. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Do not, don't be throwing shade at Jimmy for this tweet, because I think he's trying to make a specific point. And however, I anytime I compare with anybody on anything, I am happy to do it. And there's another comment down here somewhere about this is why he's not ever going to, or someone said this, they're not going to ever be successful on Twitch because of their same opinions about pair programming. And then maybe it's a certain kind of person that they have to be like super heads down and focused to accomplish some programming task. They don't want to take the time out to help someone through it or answer questions, and that's totally fine. There's a time and place for that, absolutely. And so I don't think it was Jimmy, but somebody else, maybe it was like Brady Gaster, a comment on this that says he's not going to be good at Twitch. Which, by the way, Brady, if you're watching this, I think you would be amazing on Twitch. I think you have the personality for it, and you're a smart, talented person. So don't let the fear of being on Twitch drive you away from it. You should definitely come and check it out. I think you would be great. However, not everyone is made for that sort of thing. I like to think that I enjoy it. I feel like I could be okay at it, and I could get better at it because I enjoy it and I like doing it. Yeah, Calvin, I don't throw shade at anybody. Too much of it going around these days. You're absolutely right about that. So that's why I always like to be positive here on this channel. So whenever we see a Stack Overflow comment or a Reddit comment, something like that, just give it an upvote. Just give it a thumbs up. Try to spread a little positivity around. There's always going to be someone, or Hacker News, if you're still wasting time with Hacker News, just throw an upvote on there. If you read the comment and it wasn't someone being a jerk, just throw an upvote on there. Get some positivity around there, because there's going to be plenty of people leaving those jerky comments and jerky responses. So let them do that, but you just throw an upvote out there to let the people know that there's still someone out there who finds what you're doing useful and helpful and positive. So let's keep things positive. Let's spread some more positivity around the internet. Anyway, that's how I bring that up. Okay. We're coming up on 3 o'clock, so we got time. Let's look at window functions next. So this is the last of the 3 things I wanted to look at today. And this is, again, more of, I've done some window functioning in the past, not very much of it. This is more of me just gathering some knowledge. Relevant Jesse just rated the channel with 15 viewers. Relevant Jesse, thank you. What's up? Welcome everyone from Relevant Jesse's channel. I don't know how to respond to a raid other than to say thank you. Hey, yeah, using Notepad as an actual notepad. It's going great, Relevant Jesse. We're getting some stuff done. We're trying to spread some positivity on the internet, which may be futile. What is this thing that's happening? Z Doctor, Twitch raid. I don't know what's happening. I don't think I've ever been a recipient of a raid before. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So hey, if you want to let us know, like, what I'm supposed to do in a raid. Other than say thank you. Entity Adam, thanks for dropping in. I'm supposed to defend. Yeah, I've seen this before. What is a raid defend? What does that mean? Anybody know, understand what that means? I'm seeing some LOLs here. Yeah, we're getting some stuff done, getting some planning done mostly. Put your hands in the air, go nuts, carry on. Okay. You never heard of what before? You never heard of defend before? I don't know. I don't know what it is. There's some sort of emoji thing going on. I don't know. Oh, we can show off our custom emoji. My favorite, bada bing, bada boom. Calvin's smiling face. Basically, you ban all the new viewers. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ban all the new viewers. And not only because I don't know how to ban people. I'm I'm not banning anybody unless they're getting too abusive. Like, new profile pic. All right, let's do it. These are my emotes. Those all look like real professional. I just took a picture of Calvin and cropped out his head, and that's all I did. These look like someone actually put some work into them. You drew them, Z Doctor. Awesome. Those look incredible. Those look super cute. I'll show this to my daughter. She's always like, whenever she sees something cute, like these days when she sees something cute, she just sort of freaks out. She does like her eyes start to get like huge anime eyes, and she's like, oh, so cute. I have to show those to her. Anyway, yes, thank you for the raid. Thanks for dropping in, everybody. We're doing some hardcore database stuff today, so probably not the most super exciting thing, but I do a lot of back-end stuff, database stuff. I work for a company called Couchbase. We make a database product, a NoSQL database product. So I'm doing some. One of my jobs is to work on content, tutorials, and blog posts and things like that. So we've got a new release coming out soon, and so one of my jobs is to highlight some of the new features in our upcoming release, which will be a beta release, by the way. I think I don't have an exact date for you, but just coming through some. Doing some planning. So one of the things we talked about already was our index advisor coming out to tell you how to do indexes. So actually put together a nice outline with the help of some of the people in the chat room here to put together a nice outline. So I've got a good outline to start working on, which to me that's the hardest part, is coming up with an outline, figuring out, okay, which steps do I want the user to follow in the tutorial. When you raid, the users spam emojis from the raiders chat into the raidees chat. Okay. Great. So I'm thinking about doing a raid here in probably half an hour. So everyone who wants to join me, we're going to spam Calvin's face into whoever we're raiding. Hopefully Entity Adam is not just messing with me, and hopefully that's what you're actually supposed to do. So Calvin, get ready to be spammed. User-defined functions was the second thing we worked on. This is a new feature coming in Couchbase. If you've not heard of user-defined functions before, it's just a function that is stored in a database. When you raid, you attack the OP. Oh, wait, that's Reddit. Oh, my goodness. Don't get me started on Reddit. Oh, don't even get me started. I think Reddit is a very cool, mechanic, the way the website works. But because it's the internet, it's just ruined by everybody. So, yes, it is nothing but attacking the OP, negative comments, and a lot of downvoting. And I am not about that. I'm all about the upvoting. If someone puts themselves out there and they're not being a total jerk, they put themselves out there with an opinion or some artwork or some work that they've done, give them an upvote. It doesn't really cost you anything. Just upvote it. I think Stack Trace is pretty toxic too. I agree. Stack Overflow, not as bad as Reddit, but I agree. If you're on a Stack Overflow, someone puts themselves out there. If they're not being a jerk, just give them an upvote. Even if they're just putting out a little comment, just give them an upvote. Stack Overflow, is Stack Trace different than Stack Overflow? I was thinking Stack Exchange. I thought you meant the whole family of Stack Exchange. What's Stack Trace? I've not heard of that before. Oh yeah, you meant Stack Overflow. Yeah. Okay, I know what you meant. Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange, that whole family of sites. Yeah, throw some upvotes out there, people. It doesn't take you but a second, if that. Throw an upvote out there. Just show some positivity in the world. That's all I'm saying. That's what we were talking about before the raid. So, yes, I agree. Anyway, user-defined functions. It's a way of writing some SQL code into a function. So you wrap it up in a nice function, hopefully with some parameters. Haven't figured that part out yet. With some parameters, and then you can call the user-defined function. I need to work on some content to highlight that. And the last one is window functions. We were just getting started on window functions, which I have used a little bit before, but I need to understand them a little better before I can start writing some content to highlight how the window functions that are being added to Couchbase server. So actually, I know that someone at Couchbase wrote a blog post recently about window or Windows functions. So window functions is what they're calling them, and or CTE. Sometimes I've heard them referred to as windowing functions, but we're not talking Microsoft Windows. We're talking like windows into data windows. So this is a blog post by Binley, and I know Ben. We've worked together a little bit on stuff. He's on the product team, and I'm technically Technically, I'm on engineering team, but we're kind of like a special subset of the engineering team, the special people. Um, Do you know Brant Burnett? Yes, I know Brant Burnett, Entity Atom. I love Brant Burnett. He's not a Couchbase employee, but yeah, Brant Burnett works at Center Edge, and he works on the Link to Couchbase project and a bunch of other open source projects. Do you know Brant Burnett? Thank you for the follow, man. I'd like to get Brant on the stream here one of these days. That's awesome. So how do you know Brant? Is this just a total coincidence, or that would be awesome. Yeah, Brant Burnett does the Link to Couchbase stuff, which we talked about earlier on the channel today. Yeah, Brant is great. He's a great guy. He's been, he does some cool stuff at Center Edge, does a lot of good open source stuff. He speaks at Triangle.net user groups. Yes, he does. And actually, some of those presentations, I'm not going to take full credit for it because Brant has done some great stuff. But I've actually helped him out with a couple slides for those presentations. So that's awesome. That's awesome. That's really great. I'm glad. It is definitely fate, Zig Doctor. That is great. So yeah, Brant's an awesome guy. I think I'm not sure about this, but All Things Open is a conference coming up in the Raleigh area later this year. I think Brant has been to the last two. You're going as well? Awesome. Great. I'm going to be at All Things Open. I'll be speaking there. I'll also be at the Couchbase booth. Couchbase is a sponsor of All Things Open. So that'll be great. You should definitely come by. I'll give you a Couchbase t-shirt or whatever else swag we have at the time. Raleigh Code Camp is coming up October 5th. Let's bring that up. Let's give the Raleigh Code Camp a plug. Raleigh Code Camp. Code Camp. I've been to the Raleigh Code Camp before. Yes. Actually, one of the very first speaking engagements I ever had, I believe, was at the Raleigh Code Camp. Or I could be mistaking it for a Richmond Code Camp. Yeah, they both start with R, right? And they're both towards the East Coast over there. But I have been to Raleigh Code Camp. In fact, I think one of my favorite conference t-shirts came from Raleigh Code Camp. But I don't know if I still have it. Yes. So you're saying the CFP is open. I should submit a presentation. Okay. Let's see. When is it? So the event is October 5th. Let me bring up my calendar here. See what's going on October 5th. Because I might have something else. Let's have a look here. October 5th. So, okay. Wow, that is a jam-packed week. So, Cream City Code is that same day, but I have been rejected from Cream City Code. I won't be going to that. Dog Food Con is the day before. So that might be trouble. Not that I haven't done it before. There was one week, I think it was actually All Things Open was part of it. There was 1 week where I literally did 4 conferences in a week. That was a wild week. It was All Things Open, and then I flew to San Francisco for IT Dev Connections. And then I drove down to, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong week. Then I drove down to San Jose for a Couchbase conference. And then I think there was one more in there somewhere, like a user group or something. So, not that I've not done it before, but that might be a tight squeeze for me. But anyway, here we go. Raleigh Code Camp. October 5th is when it happens. That's a Saturday. The CFP is open. It closes in about half a month. So you got plenty of time to submit to this one. Yeah, all kinds of great stuff. It's aimed at .NET developers. So that's interesting. Security, craftsmanship, database development. Well, heck. I'm all about the database stuff. I'm all about the .NET. I can submit something to that. I just might do that. Well, thank you very much, Enter the Atom. I will check that out. And you know what else I should do is I should get Brant Burnett to submit something if he hasn't already. So I'm coming for you, Brant. I'm coming for you because I know you're local to this. And Brant would do a way better job than me anyway. So I will see if I can get Brant to submit to that. Thank you very much, Enter the Atom. That's cool. So yeah, code camps are awesome. Calvin got shut off for Cream City too. Yeah. That's kind of disappointing because I've never been up to Cream City. I've never even been to Milwaukee. That's Milwaukee, right? Yeah. So, oh well. Tech Bash. Yeah, I don't think I submitted to Tech Bash. I think I had a conflict with something, so I didn't submit there. Entity Adam, thank you for the subscription. Oh, goodness. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's awesome. And you get, 2 bada bing, bada booms. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. Love it. Thank you, Entity Adam. Appreciate that. Yeah, Cream City Code, never been up there. You know, here is the ultimate problem with being a DA. And I'm going to lay this out for you. It's going to sound like a first world problem. But one of the problems with being a DA is that you go to so many events. And these days, there are so many great events out there. There are so many conferences, meetups, user groups, code camps, hashtag first world problem. Absolutely. There are so many. And I submit to a lot of them as a speaker. I go to many of them as a sponsor. And what that means basically is that there's really only 1 or 2 conferences a year that I can attend like as just a regular attendee, where I'm not speaking and I'm not sponsoring. I'm just there to kind of soak up the conference and learn and meet people and do all the awesome stuff that you get to do at conferences. And I only get a chance to maybe do 1 or 2 of those a year. So a conference like Cream City comes along, and if I'm going there as a speaker, my company is happy to send me there. Yeah, it sounds like it sucks going all over, meeting new people and being awesome. No, that's not the problem. The problem I'm getting at is this. A conference like Cream City Code comes along. All right? I want to go to Cream City Code. I love conferences. That's one of the reasons I'm in, this job. I love going to conferences. But because I'm not speaking there, I have to really limit my personal conferences to like 1 or 2 a year. The ones that I go to just because I want to go to them and learn and network at them. So I can't go to Cream City as much as I'd like to, because I'd have to fund it myself. And if I wanted to go to every conference that I wanted to, I would do nothing except go to conferences. So one of the conferences that I go to just kind of as my own like personal development is the MVP Summit, Microsoft MVP Summit. So that's one. And other one I usually try to go to is the DevXCon. This is a developer advocate conference. And everything else is just I go to because I'm a speaker or because I'm sponsoring. And if there's stuff in Columbus I can get to, like local, super local, I can go to that as well. But that's the problem, is that if I'm turned down from these conferences, I really can't go to them as much as I'd like to. So that's the problem. It's totally a first world problem because I still get to go to a ton of awesome conferences, but I can't go to all of them that I want to. But yeah, that's I know you're gonna cry some. I should cry myself a river, right? Because I still get to go to awesome conferences and meet great people. So yeah. Anyway, window functions. Got about 20 minutes here. So Bin Lee wrote a blog post on window functions. Let me get the tiny violin. Yeah, absolutely. I deserve the tiny violin. It's just, I use the word problem, but it's really a problem that I like having. So I'd like to go to Cream City Code one of these days. I really would like to. And I know there's some great people involved in organizing the conference. I think, I know David Pine, I think. Maybe not anymore. I think he used to be involved. And Stephen, oh my goodness. I'm so terrible with names. Steven. He was on my podcast even, and I still don't know his name. Oh, my goodness. I'm terrible. Stephen Cleary? No, that's not him. It might not even be Stephen. Stephen Hicks. At least in the past, he's been one of the organizers of it. So, yes. If you get a chance to go to Cream City Code, please do report back how it is. So Coral brought up another conference. It's Abstractions in Pittsburgh, I believe. And Coral is going to that one. That is the same time as Codepalooza. So David probably isn't anymore. He moved to Seattle. Oh, that's right. He did move to Seattle, didn't he? He still might be involved. I've known people that have moved out west that still get involved with the conferences from where they come from. But yeah, it's possibly he's not there anymore. But he has been in the past. So Abstractions, yes, great lineup. Oh, they have their full session list up now. We can go check it out. The problem with Abstractions is it looks like an amazing conference that I want to go to, and it's relatively close to me. It's in Pittsburgh. It's like a short drive. It's the same time as Codepalooza, which it's Sophie's choice. Abstractions I've never been to. Codepalooza I've been to. I know how awesome it is. I'm also a speaker there, so I can't go to Abstractions. But it is coming up. This is one you should check out. I thought you said they were posted here. Am I the right? Oh, here we go. It's one of those single-page applications that takes a second to load. So you can see all the list of sessions here. And this one has a little different focus than a conference like Codepalooza. All right, it's a little more, it's still about tech and about code and stuff like that, but it's about sort of a technology in a broader sense. And it's not just about tooling and coding, but all the other stuff that goes with it. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the planning and the pair programming, all that kind of stuff. It's not just about, here's how you write a program in language X, but it's about all the stuff that goes with it. So I'm not recognizing any of these speakers. Technical talks and people talks. Sometimes I hear that as soft skills, and then but that doesn't mean they're less important. So I'm not recognizing any of these names, which is probably for two reasons. One is maybe there's a lot of first-time speakers, which would be awesome. Jamie Wright, I recognize that name. Two is that it's Pittsburgh, which is close to me, but for whatever reason, it kind of feels like there's a little bit of a divide, between Ohio and towards the west, and then West Virginia and Pittsburgh. It's like a different set of people for some reason. I don't know. There's bleed over sometimes, but it always feels like it's a different area. Anyway, so I'm not recognizing a lot of these names. Like when I've been to what's the Pittsburgh Tech Fest. It feels similar. Like there's great people and they're great topics, and I know some of the people there, but it feels like it's just a whole different set of people. So, parkour, interesting. Date time problems. Moving across time zones breaks applications. True, except that Pittsburgh and Columbus are in the same time zone. We're all in Eastern time. There's a lot of sessions. My goodness, there's lots of stuff. See, for some reason, I was thinking this was like a single track or like a 2-track conference. This looks like a full-blown conference here. Lots of great stuff. Continuous improvements. Blew up my theory. My goodness, is this ever going to end? Holy cow. Mary Thingvall. That's a name that should be well known to developer advocates. Hopefully you've read her book. Unlike me, I've read part of her book. She is a very influential DA, and she wrote a book on DA as well. The Business Value of Developer Relations. Definitely one to check out there if I was going, but I'm not, so I'm going to miss that one. Anyway, it's the avocado book. Let me just show that one. We're going off on tangents here. We're not going to get to winnowing functions. That's fine. Yes, this one right here, the Business Value Developer Relations. So it's the one with avocados. This one's an interesting book. It's not just her. I mean, she does the bulk of the writing, obviously, but she does like little interviews with like a bunch of DAs, like little snippets. It's a really interesting book. And then Jono, I forget how to say his name. Bacon, he does the forward for that, which he's also an influential DA. Ping me later on anything you find interesting. I'll consider getting them on my schedule. You know, so for me, I've done so many conferences. Like I always look at the speaker. If it's a name I recognize, I'll be like, okay, yeah, this is one I should definitely check out. And secondly, I look at the topic. I'm like, is this a topic I'm interested in? Okay. So I'm just kind of skimming the speaker list here to see if there's anyone. Heather Miller on TBA. That one looks really interesting. Heather Miller sounds familiar. I don't know what. Why would you put all TBA on there? Interesting. Okay, another TBA. So maybe they're just in the process right now of loading these up there. Keynote. Simon Geertz. No, you don't need a single page app. That's ironic that this page here I'm looking at is single page app. It's telling me I don't need a single page app. That one sounds. This is the kind of title that gets my attention, right here. Like you don't need a single page app, because pretty much everyone I talk to, it seems like, and maybe this is just some confirmation bias or something, are like, yeah, we got to use Angular, we got to use React, we got to use Elm, we got to use this and this and this. As I said, I'm kind of a back-end guy. I'm all about the back end, and single page apps to me seem like overkill sometimes. Like just for instance, this is one of the banks I work with, Chase. Oh, this isn't the one. I think it's Chase. Go to this page and look. It's just full of spinners to start with. I'm like, do we really need that many spinners when we go to Chase's homepage? I don't think so. Anyway, let's keep going before I get too ranty and negative. What are these hearts? Are these supposed to be like the favorite it? Okay, that's the favorite session. Okay, I was like, why does every single session have a heart emoji? Accessibility, junior developers. That sounds interesting. "100% of our engineers on call." Okay, that one I think would be worth checking out. That title gives me the willies right there. Everybody's on call. That makes me unhappy. However, I feel like if you put all your engineers on call, you're going to get some really interesting results. And at the end of the day, they're not going to need to be on call. So that one would be interesting to me. I'd like to check that one out. Let's see. Man, so much. I hope next year that the scheduling works out. I want to check this one out for sure. How do we get on this tangent? My goodness, we're way off. We're way off here. Code a synth in 5 lines of your code. Huh. Okay, I don't know what that is. It could be interesting. Oh, I finally got to the bottom. Okay. So, oh, hello. This last one, Apache NiFi. Now you got my attention. If you've never seen Apache NiFi before, this is a really darn good, darn interesting tool when it comes to data. It's like a visual data flow tool. It's very cool. Success and failure adopting workflow management tools. I mean, just the fact that it has NiFi in it makes me want to go. Company I'm on now rotates on call for all the devs. It comes with the expectation that we'll be spending our sprint time on reducing the need to be, though, rather than sprint commitments. NiFi is crazy. Yeah, NiFi is crazy. Awesome. The Cincinnati Reds here in Ohio are using NiFi, and it is really interesting. Blows ESB out of the water. I don't know what ESB is, but I'll take your word for it. It is very interesting. So the only thing I have about on-call Coral Enterprise Service Bus. Okay. Is that a Microsoft product or something? I don't know if I've used Enterprise Service Bus before. My thing with on-call is that, I mean, it just adds a lot of stress, I think, because now you're like, even when you leave work, you're still at work. So that's frustrating to me. That I could, any time that some exec or some marketing person can just say, oh no, this font's wrong, we got to get it fixed right now, and now I'm getting pinged by by work to come and fix a font, some garbage like that. So I'm not on board with that. But I can see where, well, for one, I like the rotating thing. A company I used to work at, we would rotate answering questions in the support forums, and I thought that was a really interesting thing. It wasn't the same thing as on call, but for a week, basically, you would drop everything you're doing, and it would be your job to help people in the forums, like exclusively. I thought that was an awesome idea. But yeah, on-call devs would lose what little work-life balance we have left. That's my concern. But yeah, if it's really super important, then I think you don't need to be explicitly on call for that, right? If there's something that's something that needs to get done, like needs to get deployed, like on Saturday night or something, if that's every once in a while, okay, fine. But if it's, I don't want the whole development team to be, putting out ridiculous fires that ultimately are trivial or they can wait till Monday, that sort of thing. So that's my main concern with on-call. So whenever I see on-call, my antenna go up. I'm really worried about that. So I'd be interested to see that session, to see how they dealt with those problems, the benefits of it, that sort of thing. So yeah, you're right there with me. Cool. But yeah, that seems like an interesting session. I would check that one out for sure. So lots of stuff here to check out. And the problem with this, and again, first world problem, is that you have all these great sessions and a limited amount of time. It's a 3-day conference. So that's, wow, dang, 3 days? For whatever reason, in my mind, Abstractions was like a 1 or 2 day conference with like 2 or 3 tracks. For some reason, that's was my impression of it. But this is like a 3-day conference with like 100+ sessions. This is some serious stuff. Okay, I have to keep my eye on this one for sure. All right, but then what I usually do is do a Control F. I like to search for who's talking about NoSQL, nobody. Who's talking about databases, nobody. We see some data stuff in there. So this seems like it's more of a front end driven conference, which is the popular thing these days. Except NiFi is totally not front end. It's kind of a front end for data. All descriptions are all truncated there. Okay, so Control F might not even work. It's definitely not front end focused. Oh, there's a little search box here. Is that okay, so that seems to work. Wait. I searched NiFi and I got more than one result. That can't be right. I think they got a bug in their search. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's substring. Yeah, it's not a real search engine. This would be a great place for Couchbase full text search. Yeah, significant does not match NiFi. Okay, but there's Apache NiFi. So anyway, the fact that there's one NiFi session is really awesome. I was on the speaker selection board of CodeMash this year, and it was one of my purposes, that one of my driving things to do was to get someone to talk about NiFi, because it was such a cool thing. They've got it published in JSON. Well, if they got it published in JSON, it's easy to dump it into Couchbase and get a full text search going. I'm just joking, of course. Conference organizers are busy enough without having to learn a whole new tool and rework their entire schedule site. But what else? So NoSQL, nothing there. Like the Couchbase, of course, probably wouldn't show up. Anything else with Couch? Sometimes they'll say CouchDB, but they really mean Couchbase. That can be another project for you. Yeah, I just need another project like that. Database. So nothing for database. Anything for .NET? Nope. Microsoft. Architecture and organization. That seems like a pretty vague title and a very long abstract for a conference called Abstractions. Okay, pretty serious. ASP.NET, nothing there. So it doesn't seem like it's very tool focused, which is cool, but it means you really have to sift through the these abstracts. You got to pay attention to what you're going to choose. Now, the other thing you got to think of is the schedule, because you may find 5 sessions on here that are good, but they may all be conflicting. So, yeah. Okay. All right, well, we're going to wrap up here quickly. I'm terrified of likely overlaps. Don't be. Don't be. And, I don't know how Abstractions deals with it, but there's something called the law of 2 feet. Have you heard this before? This is an expression that I hear used a lot at conferences. The law of 2 feet. So this is applied to meetings. But the law of 2 feet basically is if the session you're in is not what you expected it to be, or it's not going well, walk to another session with your 2 feet. And, as someone who presents a lot, I'm well aware of people who get up and walk out of the session. And that can be tough. That can be a tough pill for your ego to swallow. But you have to keep in mind that, people have got their own stuff going on. There may be a reason they're leaving the room that has nothing to do with me as a speaker. That's like, okay, well, maybe I know this already, or maybe this isn't what I expected it to be, or maybe compare it. I've been juggling the two in my mind. I'm like, well, okay, this one is okay, but I really want to check out the other one. So I try not to be too worried about the whole 2 feet thing. If people walk up to leave a session, that's fine with me. So that being said, if you get into a session and it's not as good as you hoped it would be, or not as interesting or relevant, or go to another session. So it's still tough because you have overlapping sessions and you're going to miss 5 minutes of the first one, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's okay. That's a good problem to have. Again, first world problems. There's too much good content here. Yeah, first world problem. Okay, so we're not going to get to windowing function stuff here, although I did find earlier a couple of work in progress docs that we can look on windowing functions about. Just hope their video publishing goes well. Oh boy, they're trying to video and publish all their sessions. Man, Abstractions, I don't know if I'm thinking of something different, but they got real ambitious. Law of 2 feet is also often used by parents when their kids ask them to drive them somewhere. I'll tell you what, video recording conferences, that is no joke. That is very tough to pull off and pull off well. It's just logistically, it's really, really tough. And not to mention accessibility issues, and what about slides, sound, video, all those things. Even if you get a professional to do it, it's still a tall order for those professionals to pull it off. So every time it happens, I am extremely grateful that I get a video of my own session published, and yeah, I'm not like a big time organizer, but have helped a little bit with some of these conferences, and you would not believe the type of complaints that conference organizers get from the people who go to conferences. So it is impossible to keep everybody happy at conferences. So please, next time you're at a conference, just find one of the organizers and just say thank you, and that they're doing a great job, because chances are they've heard about 20 complaints from everything like the flavor of the coffee to the color of the carpet, or the music playing in the elevators. So please just go and thank them for their hard work. They've had live subtitles most of the talks last time too. That's very cool. Sometimes you get actually hire people to do that, and that's very expensive. Sometimes you have like some machine learning to do it, and that's very inexpensive, but hit or miss. So that's pretty cool. The MVP summit I went to, they had a live like subtitle thing. It was done by like a court stenographer guy type of thing, and it was pretty cool because even for someone who has like pretty good hearing still, subtitles are very helpful because sometimes you'll miss a word. Sometimes there'll be like someone laughing or a group of people laughing. You kind of miss what was heard, stuff like that. So those are very helpful. Therapy dogs. So for me, dogs would be like anti-therapy. I'd be more uncomfortable if there were dogs around. But sure, therapy dogs. Why not? Most people seem to like dogs. I'm not one of those people. All right. With that, with my throwing shade towards dogs, we're going to close it out for the day. Let's bring up our Twitch team live coders and see who we can raid. We've got Lies Live still up. InstaFluff, the Michael Jolly. Let's raid the Michael Jolly today. We've raided him before, but he stopped in earlier today, so I think that would be appropriate to go and say hi to the Michael Jolly. Keep it rolling. See what he's up to. So I want to thank everybody today for checking out the stream. We had Relevant Jesse raiding me. Thank you for that raid, Relevant Jesse. Entity Adam following and subscribed. So awesome. Thank you. Also, Calvin doing an awesome job still. Gifting some subs to Riley and to the Michael Jolly, of course. So thank everybody with your questions as well. Thanks for Coral for stopping in. Z Doctor. Geez. This was a great stream today. Lots of great. Relevant Jesse, of course. Lots of great stuff. So thank you, everybody, for your help today. Yes, I will definitely be at All Things Open for sure. So definitely stop by the Couchbase booth. I'll be on the schedule. Come see my session. Whatever. Maybe we can hang out. Buy you a soda or something while I'm there. But definitely come by and say hi. So we're going to head on over to the Michael Jolly's channel now. I just started that raid. So if you're joining the raid, start spamming Calvin's emoji, the bada bing, bada boom. Wait, that didn't work. Coral, thank you for the subscription. Very much appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to head on over to the raid now. We've got 10 viewers ready to raid, according to this. Need that emoji. Got to have it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you over there in Michael Jolly's channel.